What is going on, you guys? It's your boy McNugget McDeath here, and we are back with episode 140 of the video game therapy series. I am wither skeleton hunting. The farm I built for wither skeletons sucks, so I'm just gonna go hunt them manually over here. I'm not sure if they changed something with the spawning or whatever the hell they did. Either way, it's really done a number on my ability to get withers or wither skulls and withers, coincidentally. So I'm here doing it manually for now. I've actually been recording a lot, but just a ton of stuff for the Let's Play, and I have to chop a lot of it out because it's a lot of normally I get to wait and think about what I have to say and explain what I'm doing next, but these were all just kind of live reactions, which I'm not very good with. I'm not a very good live gamer. There's a good reason I don't live stream is because it would be boring. But short of doing something like this, this is not a live stream at all. And I do cut these off if I really get into bad territory or something, or if I just end up not speaking about anything remotely interesting. But live gamers have to have these uh, you know, maybe authentic in quotes, but just reactions to things. And I don't have these. I'm not whoa, very rarely will I do anything but just kind of quietly play, whatever the game is. So I feel like me talking like this is the closest thing I can get to anything that is a live performance. Just because I'm not a very I wish I was, and I genuinely wish I was more enthusiastic just about, I guess, everything. Not even just games, but I think just in general, if I it's even getting gifts or something on a holiday, you know, I guess normal people or people, whether they're good at, I mean, maybe I'm just bad at this, but they're just wow, thanks. Anytime I try to do anything like that, it just, even before I even say it, I can already feel the immense amount of sarcasm present in my voice. And especially now where people know me and my family knows me, I've set this precedent. Not that I'm resistant to change in that regard, but it would just be bizarre if I, had this very, if I changed the way I talk about things. I'm just very monotone and sarcastic. That's just kind of been the way I am for all my life. And it's just the way I naturally gravitate towards. It's not like it's a result of my pessimism or cynicism, if you want to call it that, which again, I would disagree with both of those. I don't think I'm pessimistic or a cynic. At least not a lowercase c cynic. Like I said, capital C cynic, maybe. Probably. But lowercase c, no. Also, I'm not a pessimist. Here's the other kind of thing that I want to talk about with regards to, of course, I'm back to shitting on tech people, so I have to do that. But it's very odd. It's people consider cognitive dissonance a bad thing, meaning that believing one thing or holding two contradictory ideas in your head at once, and yet that not bothering you. But I would argue, and I think I argue, it's reasonable. Of course, that's my legal standard. Do I think it's reasonable? But I think that's part of what even being that's part of a human belief in general. Is it's humans are, again, to be human is to be a hypocrite on some level, and it's not. I guess people think it's heretical to believe two contradictory things. For example, I can believe that the case in favor of humanity, existing over machines, is not great. And not I mean machines is is a very general term. I'm not saying any particular manifestation. I'm not saying GPT-5 or something. But I'm saying in general, even regardless of trajectory, even current machines and whatever, from an efficiency standpoint, which we seem to love, there's not a great case for humanity. Mostly just because of all the dumbass shit that we choose to make such a huge part of our identity. The fact that Buc-ee's exists and people are excited about Buc-ee's is, again, a case against humanity. Obesity. It's most species fight to survive, and they eat enough to they just try to stay alive with what they can, and we are suffering from literally the opposite problem. And I know it's mostly like an America thing, and it's not like not something applicable to the whole world. I'm not saying it's just like America that needs to go. Eventually any country with, I guess, allowing the freedoms and gluttony that America has will eventually succumb to this kind of shit. Even, there's even countries in Europe and stuff, in Mexico. There's other countries that are just as fat as the U.S. So it's not like it's just like everybody's skinny everywhere in these giga chads. Everybody everywhere is stupid, ugly, like they're getting uglier, getting fatter. Nobody's like, we're not really improving on humanity, outside of like, again, maybe like the top 10% are getting better, but then the bottom 90% are just pulling everyone down. And I think a lot of people look at that and then like, they have this, it's this reasonable like conclusion on like, almost like this eugenics argument where it's like, well, the strong must survive. Like we want humanity to continue to exist. We have to like exterminate. So then they become like eugenicists. But anyway, I guess before I go on to that tangent, I can believe that the case for humanity is weak, meaning that we do a lot of shit that doesn't really, why don't we deserve, at the very least, like a dictatorship or something. But I also, again, contradictorily, believe that I have great faith in like the human condition. And also I'm critical of humanity's bullshit, putting myself in the same category. It's not like I'm absolving myself of the dumbass bullshit that, humans concern themselves with and our, comparatively low production and, productivity and efficiency with regard to, machinery, other things like that. And of course people can make this creative angle where it's like, well, we're like more creative and like innovative thinkers or whatever. Not only do people not really care about that, there's not really a premium on that, and I guess in a market sense, but even from like a biological perspective, there's very little that like drawing a cool picture does for us, as a species. Physically speaking, we're bested already. But besides that, I still have great faith in humanity as a whole. I still want my species to live on, and I stand directly opposed to a lot of these, technologists that are just like giddy about the destruction of humanity. And I say destruction, but they say like, they might say like the transcendence. Like, no, we're not like getting rid of humanity. We're just transcending our skin bodies. It's like, well, no. I think what you're meaning is there's a certain kind of destruction you're destroying, and that's even like people don't see that messaging implicit in that ideology, but I think it is. Even anything else, it's like anytime I talked about this a few episodes ago, but like every kind of ideology, again, once is exclusionary on some level. Now, like the bounds on which you are excluding people or things or other ideas is again dependent on what the ideology is. But regardless, like an ideology or a set of beliefs exists because it excludes. Some beliefs are within bounds and others aren't. And that's kind of like tautologically true. That's just the way beliefs function. It's like there's, as a set of beliefs, you have things that you believe and things that you don't. And as a result of this, as a direct result of this, sometimes like if your beliefs about people, it includes some people continue to exist or are preferred and other people are not preferred. And again, like the real racist way of looking at this is just like, well, people with this skin color or people with this background don't deserve to exist. And obviously people are like, well, that's racist. Okay, that part's racist. But still, like, people that believe this, like, again, they won't say it shouldn't exist, but it's like, should be passed on as opposed to people that believe this. Like, we should prioritize people that believe these things over the people that believe, these other things. Which is still, again, you're still excluding people. Now, it's not as obvious and as, offensive as, like, racism, like just blatant, like this race should exist, this one shouldn't. But in some ways, it's almost more insulting because you're not even really clarifying exactly what you believe. It's just like, well, at any point we can adjust, the people in our in-group. It's like that doesn't, you're not even really selecting a group then. You're just kind of like, your beliefs are somewhat amorphous. I'm not saying I'm defending, blatant racists over other people that have other exclusionary beliefs, but regardless, every belief at its core involves excluding some ideas or some people that hold certain ideas. Again, I hopefully not on the basis of something silly as race, but regardless, that still is like a set of beliefs that is exclusionary. But what the ironic part about I guess technologists that are investing and hopeful about our future is it inherently comes from a place that is very pessimistic about humans. So it's like they almost share my belief that like the case for humanity is pretty weak. Like, they look around, they go to Buc-ee's, they go to Walmart, and some people aren't. They just, I don't know, they love I guess the culture or whatever. But many people are like, wow, humans are, fat and lazy, then they're not efficient, and like I want more efficient workers. Everyone's lazy and but entitled or whatever, and stupid. Which again, I can't really argue with any of those individual points. Like there's a lot of merit to those arguments. It's not like I'm saying that humans now we're getting worse. It's not like we're better than. I don't even think we're better than our ancestors in terms of like our ability to deal with the world's problems. I think, again, there's a subset. I would say probably, I wish I'd say 80-20, but maybe I will say 80-20 just for parity's sake. 80% of the people are getting worse, and 20% are actual, genuine, like genetic and actual improvements on prior generations, from like a survivability standpoint. Whereas a certain 80% of the existing population is less able to deal, is less robust, in the field of survivability, I guess, to put it, to make that the metric. Which again, but I hold that belief. At the same time, I believe that what these technologists are advocating for is cruel and bad. Like these are two kind of contradictory beliefs. And of course, the ironic part that I was getting at was that the technologists, while having such a pessimistic view, that cloak their philosophy in like this is a good thing. Like we should be happy that like like we won't need food anymore because we'll just eat a pill, and it's like they're like giddy about that part, which is funny given how like nihilistic and negative that viewpoint on humanity is. And I've mentioned this in passing, but it's truly that they are like deeply offended by our biological limits. It's like, they get horny and they're like, this stupid meat body is horny. What the fuck? Like this thing sucks. Like why can't I be just more like a computer? And it's almost like we're fetishizing, how much better technology is at certain things, and not appreciating a lot of the gifts that we have. And some of this is just humans existing outside of their wheelhouse. Like I don't think that pure logical processing is in it's in our realm of skills. Like we're able to do it, but it's not like we're not designed. And like again, whether it's Jesus or evolution or whoever designing us, we're not designed to be logical computation masters. That's just not literally what we've been not what we're built for. And you could say design or build, or not what we evolved to do, whatever. We evolved to kind of be these and again, I'm generalizing. It's all relative, I guess, to other species. Like I could say we're strong, but we're strong relative to like, I don't know, ants or something. But like relative to a gorilla, we're not very strong. I think we've evolved, to use intelligence to then improve our odds of survival, given that we maybe weren't the fastest or the strongest, but we used ingenuity to solve unique problems or problems unique to our environment. And this also allowed us to create society and other things that go far beyond any other species' aims. It's not like any other species is even like at the budding stages of like creating society. Like the closest thing they have is like a fucking anthill or something. But that's not there's not like there's communication, but there's not like widespread ingenuity. There's no sense of innovation within an anthill. Maybe there's an argument against that, but I just don't. That's with my conception of innovation, nothing meets that criteria. But I just find it, and again, I think people will be like, well, if you really believe that humans are, because I just, the other thing about this whole like, humans suck kind of philosophy, which is again going to contradict exactly what I said earlier about Buc-ee's, but I stand my ground that like, walk into a Walmart and tell me you're optimistic about the future. You just can't. It's impossible. Like the people you see there, like what they're doing, it's gross. There's like, I stand by that 100%. I'm not walking that back at all. But at the same time, the measuring stick in which we're using to say like how much we suck and like how much better other things are than us, or our designs, in some ways our children are, the machines that we're creating. We're just kind of we're creating, measuring sticks and goalposts that we can't really achieve. Given our physical limitations and our biological, characteristics. It's as if like, to be very literal about it, it's like we're measuring success on how close we are to being 7 feet tall. It's like, well, very, very few people will ever be close to 7 feet tall. And that's like, and we could say it's a failure of like our genetics to like, why aren't we 7 feet tall yet? But you know, the other argument is like, are we even really trying to be that tall? Like, what are we really trying to accomplish? And I think that's what I'm getting at with just my confusion with, not even my confusion with, you know, I guess it's confusion in some sense, but like, what are we even trying to accomplish with all of these, you know, these goofy technical projects, like going to Mars and things like that. And a lot of people, and it ends up coming down to something like, well, our species has to survive. But then like we've created our own like 40 different ways to end our own existence. But yet like we're like again at some point that underlying you know ideology is to survive. That doesn't make any sense. And maybe you could argue that it isn't, like the people who made the atomic bomb or whatever. A lot of them say, well, we have to do it, like otherwise other people are going to do it, and they're like bad guys. And then like, you know, that's obviously I think really stupid. You know, because I think if you even like dabble into philosophy at all, and eventually, you know, I don't know, if you're any kind of philosopher, you kind of quickly realize that good and evil are almost just, you know, are constructs that we almost made up just to like fight over shit. Right? Like the idea of like something being good and this being evil is just like silly. And I hate how much that idea has like permeated everything, where it's like there's, you know, we're even using these terms as good and evil, you know, to be any kind of absolute, I mean, it's all, but that's all relative to who we are and like what the goals are. And I guess my question with, you know, to these people and like to myself and to everybody's, what are our goals that like we're even, like, what are we even going towards? I don't understand what the like what like what direction we're even trying to move in. Like, are we trying to? We're obviously not trying to do something as stupid as like be 7 feet tall. But if humans are so bad at whatever it is that we think we're doing, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? Right? Like improve survivability. It's like, well, by that measure, we would have been better off like as hunter gatherers. Our survivability was pretty good. Like, yeah, and we like solved the whole like child mortality thing. But then, like now, through a weird roundabout way, we've like invented society and we have welfare and all those other things. But then it's like, well, now we're like we're not well suited to survive. It's like, well, we were like in, you know, before we made this stupid environment for ourselves. And the ironic part is that we can control the environment to a lot. It's like we don't have to have, like, we created society. It's not like that was imposed on us. You know, it's not like we're not born. You know, we're born into this again, the hunter gatherers world, not the world of like. You know, not a world of society, not, you know, economics. Economics is not a godly, you know, creation. God didn't come down and give us economics. You know, God or whoever it is that you want to, you know, attribute things to. It's just funny to think that like, well, we have no other choice now. Like we have to, you know. It's like, no, what are you talking about? I don't know that is. Why are you being so like, you know, we've created our, you know, you've made your bed, now lay in it, you know, kind of thing. Oh, damn it. And so we've made this, and there's nothing saying that we have to continue in this direction. Like we can just undo the stuff that we've done. Or not, you know, undo is obviously like a super easy way of putting it. It's obviously going to be a little bit more complicated than that. But to act like, you know, we're doomed and like we have to, either we have to exist in this economic and social structure, or you know, we have to do something else. Like there's something we have to do. Like we've you know, evolved for better or worse to a point where we create kind of our own goalposts and things. And it's fascinating to see that what goalposts we're creating then like doesn't include the existence of humans. So I think that's kind of where I think I can resolve a lot of my inner contradictions, is that like I agree that humans like suck in our current incarnation, but I think the answer isn't to create you know, I still disagree with what goalposts these, you know, technologists have in mind with like, you know, transhumanism and like that. I don't see as an improvement on like the human condition, because I think it's a lot of it about like abilities. It's like human flourishment, and like what does flourishment mean in my sense? It's like, how do I get, you know, somebody to be, again, it sounds fucking corny as hell, but the best version of themselves, meaning that like they are invested in and able to develop themselves and their faculties to you know, abilities that make them proud of who they are. Now, I would posit that most people are not proud of who they are. They're ashamed of many things, you know, hence, you know, pedophiles and all these other things that go on. People are all fat. Like these I do not think are like if you ask somebody who's 400 pounds and you say, "Are you proud of yourself?" If they said yes, they'd be lying. Right? It's like I don't think so. I think even their like physical body is kind of like, no, motherfucker, we're not proud of you. Stop. And so like yes, I'm countering that fact with the fact that like I agree that like that is not the direction that humanity needs to go. But the answer isn't to like, well, since we're not getting better with the way society structure, we should just like kind of end humanity and replace us with other things. And I don't really take this augmentation argument seriously. Only because it's like the augmentations aren't a matter of like there's no personal autonomy in mechanical augmentations to a body. Like I think there's an exception for like if you're missing a limb to like get a fake leg, but that's like that's what I would say is a subjectively good use of technology. Whereas like some kind of external AI chip or something. Is that then begs all these questions of like what kind of what AI is running on there, what data is this trained off of, like what and it's like hilarious to be like, well, we train on unbiased data. It's like that is all that data is. It's like and I've said this before, even the collection of data is a bias point. It's like, what data did you collect? Okay, that's a point of bias because the data that you didn't collect shows what bias that you collected this data with, right? It's like what you didn't collect. It's like almost like well, we didn't like. What we said. It's like, well, what you didn't say can also be sometimes just as important, if not more. So, like, the data that you didn't collect could sometimes be even more telling in terms of what's actually going on here, right? It's like, well, all he said is you didn't touch the girl. It's like, okay, well, there's a lot of other implications that could happen with okay, what else did he not say, right? He didn't say that he wasn't trafficking drugs. I'm thinking this is all. I don't even know who I'm talking about right now, but I'm just saying, like, people not saying stuff is often just as much as just as important as what they say, literally. But I think people are so reductionist now that they kind of see like what is being said is all that there is. And people also have come to this kind of like fatalist conclusion where it's like humanity's doing, there's nothing else to learn, like we can't go anywhere, like it's it's our turn to pass it over to the machines because like we suck. Which again, it's like by what measure are we talking about we suck? And then like you don't even know what you don't know, right? Like you don't know what we're not what we're capable of and haven't achieved yet. Even given our like our crappy bodies or whatever, or this, it's like I think people mistake this like inefficient system that we've created, whatever incarnation of that you want to talk about. It could be the bad healthcare or the economy or even social contracts that people have to abide by. Like you can use the inefficiency in any of those systems to justify why humans aren't measuring up to the task. But part of this I think is just kind of this and ironically I say this as like an engineer, but we're kind of over engineering human success and human well-being, right? It's like it's almost like I said last time, I don't know a single person that has achieved anything, I wouldn't even say remarkably great or good or just like impressive, having an easy life. I think people realize that people need to realize that there's this big yin and yang to like life itself. Like, people have bad times, they get sick, or it's depressing, or people die. Maybe like someone who totally doesn't deserve to die. There's no logical justification for why somebody just died. But like I'm not gonna say that like it's a whole like religious thing where it's like the creator works in some mysterious ways. But at the same time, like a lot of ways that can be seen as a positive thing. It's like Carl Jung talked a lot about like sinking into these depressive episodes and using them, as leverage to figure out more honest truths about oneself. But people only see bad things as bad things, and it's very fatalistic. Like, well, you got cancer, that's bad. It's like, okay, understandably, like it's bad on one dimension, right? It's bad from a physical dimension. Like, yes, my body is not as capable as it was pre-cancer. I understand that. However, it's like, I'm not saying that you should spin everything into some optimistic thing, but a good part of life includes accomplishments as well as, fatalities in some, sense. And it doesn't have to mean death. That just can mean the death of certain dreams, the death of people, the death of, parts of your body. I don't know. It doesn't really matter what that is, but the fatality is, the point is that like these fatalities and good and bad things, even like the bad things create the goodness of the good things. And people that I think have this overly, fearful view of, the world and bad things shouldn't happen or we should try to avoid all bad things. I'm not saying I want people to get cancer, but people getting cancer does there are, a lot of people that have gotten cancer went on to accomplish great things, and I guarantee you, whether they want to realize this or not, or recognize this or not, some of them would not have done the things that they did without getting cancer and dying. And part of that, again, you could say even cancer is a more modern manifestation on our own, our food supply and our water and shit like that. That is the reason why people get so sick, because it's not meant for us. We've over-engineered that part of it too. But regardless, I think dismissing bad things as bad and saying like, oh, we can all agree that like getting cancer is a bad thing. It's like, well, I'm not sure that I would say that outright either. And again, I can't justify it in a one-to-one thing. I can't say definitively that this like, well, it's good to get cancer because of X, Y, Z, and you can't mistake that for like, lack of my opinion having any evidence. And of course, I could cite an individual person who got cancer and then did something great, and then they credit the cancer to why they did something great. But cancer is even a bad example. It could be plenty of other things like any other kind of hardship that is the reason why people were even motivated to do things. Sometimes it's not even like, it's almost like just a bad thing happened. It didn't even have to, but it had to happen for them to realize, what to do with their life. Which again is kind of a shitty way to do it. You'd hope they would be able to realize it without that. But you've told people, maybe you've told somebody something, and like it's right, and whether they know it's right or not, they don't listen to you, until they like finally. And you've seen this even like in movies and stuff. I wish I had a example on hand, but like they almost need some kind of point of inflection to realize what you said and like to appreciate the gravity of whatever it is that that for sure. And you like, if they just believed you, it's like the hero's going, and like the secondary character has information that would save the hero, but the hero is so dead set on like whatever their goal is, they don't listen to the secondary person, and the secondary person ends up being right, and then the hero like regrets, and like it's the whole hero's journey. Like they've lost something, but then like they came back to where they started having learned something despite a great sacrifice. And I think that not that we should overly apply that that strategy to real life, but there's a ton of truth to that and like development. And I think people that are overly excited about trying to skip over the hard parts of human life and like pretend like we can just like optimize development and people have to we can just skip all the bad shit and somehow end up at the good place, I think is silly. I think you need like these troughs of pain and suffering and difficulty to create anything worthwhile. Like otherwise, if we get rid of the pain, we'll have nothing. There will be nothing. There'll be emptiness. So I don't know. I'm a very much a humanist in that sense, where I think that is an integral part of the human condition. There's not any way to absolve suffering in all of its forms. And even like in abundance, there's suffering. Like there's people that literally, that's what obesity is. Obesity is somebody suffering from abundance, right? They have too much food and they have an inability to control themselves, and they are literally suffering as because of it. And it's totally preventable. It's not like there's any like, and it's not like some people are so stupid they don't get it, but it is a completely preventable thing. And if nothing else, should show that like even in sheer abundance, where there's literally no way to argue that there isn't more like of a good thing, like food in this case, healthy food is another thing. But like there's objectively way more like ability to survive off the foods that we have, but yet like that still causes pain and suffering. And there's even an argument to be had, like the harder we try to absolve suffering, in this case, like, I don't know, in this case it'd be like reducing obesity or something, or like not even that. It'd be like the harder we try to, create more food so that people can live longer and they don't starve to death. Like the more people will get fat and kill themselves, because of the opposite of starving to death, which is, obesity and all of its related illnesses. And some could even argue that it's even worse. Like you'd almost rather have people starving to death from not enough food than people killing themselves from too much food. And it goes all the way down the chain. I'm not saying that it's true of every vaccine also causes an equal number of deaths. I'm not saying that's the case either. There certainly are things that are, much less zero sum than this or than that. But regardless, it's one way to at least like consider things. And all of this, I just want to preface and I guess emphasize is just like the importance of humility in any kind of overarching life philosophy. I think we should approach, the entirety of the human existence from, as a humble exercise, and not trying to assume that we know what's good and what's bad. Just in the same way, like we assume we get cancer and we're like, fuck, bad, like God hates me or something. Whereas I'm not to agree overly with, a fundamentalist Christian view or something like that. They'd get cancer, they'd be like, well, God has a plan. And, whereas like this strict scientist would be like, what the fuck? This plan sucks. Like, let me, do the plan. They'd be pissed they got cancer or something like that. And I guess some people, again, it takes kind of some kind of event or some kind of problem for them to realize the error in their ways. So it's not even like I'm overly blaming people for this, but I think their error is not beginning with a place of humility. Whereas I think if every negative event that happened in your life, you approach with, okay, maybe, there could be something, I'm not saying there is always something good. Sometimes bad things just happen because they do. But like, what could I learn from this? What is this, even supposed to teach me something? How does this, how does this play into my hero's journey, to put it that way? And I think everyone, whether they care to admit this or not, or care to even like try living in this way, but they are kind of their own hero in their journey. And that's corny as fuck, but still in some way, it's like your life is kind of this hero's journey. And I think, people on their deathbed might realize that, but people spend their whole life trying to ignore that. And it's like they don't know when the good parts of their life are. They don't know when the bad parts of their life are. But at the end of it, they're like, they can, the ones that live their life well can say that, they can die with no regrets. But now I've talked about before, like with the issue of maturity, is that like these, people don't ever reach a level of maturity where they're ready to die. So they're just like trying to live through everything. It's like, motherfucker, like you need to die. Like this is, like you should have been ready to die 40 years ago. It's like you're 90 and you're still clutching on to like, what do you even have left? Like your physical body left you a decade ago. What is it that you're even after? Like something as stupid as money? Like is that, or like, your grandkids or something? It's like, what about their life? What the fuck why are you white knuckling it to the grave? I just don't get this like obsession with, and I know it's like, a perverted way to look at like life is better than death, which I agree, life is a better thing than death. But, there's also like something to be said about a noble death, like dying one's own death, is better than not living one's own life. And I think if your life is without examination, which again, I'll defend, a good life, an examined life is a good life, or whatever the quote is, by saying that one of our special faculties as humans is, this contemplative ability, or this just like, not even ability to reason. Like I'm not going to bring logic into the thing because this even goes beyond logic, but the ability to just kind of like think, just think like by itself. That's just kind of that, just pondering, just the state of ponderance as something that is, I'll say even like somewhat uniquely human. Like maybe we've observed monkeys pondering, but that's, it's hard to validate that. Regardless, like given this is just like such a, uniquely human thing, and I would argue is critical to proper development and maturity. And I think a lack of that results in, again, these 90-year-olds that aren't willing to die and they're not ready to die, and they're, again, wasting healthcare resources, whatever the fuck else they're doing, right? Because they didn't mature properly to just be ready to die. And I'm not saying anyone in particular. I'm just saying in general there is I've noticed that there's lots of older people that just kind of, find every excuse to, try these ridiculous surgeries and things. And like sometimes you're just kind of meant to die. And like, I'm not to say that I'm ready to die immediately, but when the world's ready to take me, it will take me. Like I stand no chance against like the whims of, the god of unluckiness or whatever it is. It's like he could give me cancer and I would die whenever he wanted. I don't really have any control over that. And is it my job to like try to play God and like best him? Like this isn't a jousting match. It's humans should compete with other humans. They shouldn't be trying to compete with God. And that might be another way to, I guess, frame my issue with a lot of modern, philosophies, is that they're trying to play in, trying to like be God. They're trying to control life and existence and act like they're better than, and they can defeat. And I'm not saying we should all retreat to like some pre-industrial era, but at the very least, there's just something we could learn from those prehistoric societies. They're a hell of a lot happier than we were, right? They don't suffer from like these uniquely modern problems, obesity being one, but just now it's like people can't even stop looking at a screen. It's like that is what's killing people. And that's even like, they're dying from literally just wanting to kill themselves, like getting into their own head. And like that is like the virus that's killing them. It's not even there's no physical threat. Like there's all the physical threats have been removed and there's literally nothing. And like, it's just this lack of this despair That's what kills them. Which is like, if you told somebody that like, I guess an earlier human that like there would be no enemies, but yet you would still want to kill yourself, or you would die by your own hand. They'd be like, why? They'd be like, is there like, is the devil inside of you or something? That's kind of what they would assume. And they wouldn't even be wrong. Like in this case, the devil is just like, you being a turbo gooner and, having nothing to, focus on or do. And I realize that now, especially if you, agree with this, prehistoric humans were more capable or at least had a better conception of, how to live a life and, to pursue things and, kind of this almost like this Ted Kaczynski-ish, philosophy where, modern humans are kind of fucked because of what we've done to our environment. I still think there's plenty more that, again, one of the primary things about humans is our ability to adapt. So it's like there's nothing stopping us from adapting to this new environment. And sure, it's like in ways that are less natural than, hunting and stuff like that. But that's just not the way we live anymore. And as much as I would love to mourn, I guess if you have enough money, you can be a hunter. You can go live in Montana and hunt all the time. That's one way of doing it, but most people don't have the means to do that. They have to find other ways to kind of try to figure out other ways that they can, I guess, not go crazy in the modern world. Besides just literally going full prehistoric, which again would be the shortest possible biological solution. I still think there are plenty of things that can give meaning to people and, I guess stop them from these, crimes against themselves in the name of despair. I guess that's ultimately what it is. It's like these are diseases of despair, and you can call them diseases. That almost seems impersonal, right? Like somebody's suicidal, I wouldn't say they're like afflicted with a disease. I guess if I was being more religious, I would say it's like a disease of the mind, and like their mind is attacking themselves or something like that. But I don't know that is that's just one way of, I guess, thinking about it. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I'm obviously very bothered by people's, absurd, ideas about the future. Motherfucker, I'm just drinking my water, you bastard. But yeah, so I think this like contradictory nature of like, believing two things at once is kind of fundamental to the nature of humanity. And it's not that I can just like sit down and like immediately start talking and then like pointing out people's hypocrisies. Like if you gave me pen and paper and hours to interview you and like your complete, your complete honesty and whatever, I could eventually get something in writing or put something together that like is a, fundamental hypocritical thought of yours. But that's not the point. The point is that you can do it in real time. It's like nobody held a gun up to Stephen Hawking's head and said like, think, motherfucker, and then like come up with a theory to it. It's not like it takes a lot of, thinking and things like that. And sometimes, the hypocrisies aren't, they're complicated. Sometimes they're obvious. It's like being like a Christian that hates people for some reason or something. It's like that's kind of all antithetical to that. So either you're not really a Christian, which is fine, but be honest about that. Or there's some other like or you're kind of being hypocritical to the book that you're supposedly in believe in or whatever. So but either way, going from that, like someone who's is quote unquote as simple as a fundamentalist Christian with a ridiculous beliefhood, to someone as complicated as some of these fucking Peter Thiel, who's claims to be the Antichrist or something, which is just the way I'm going to say it now, like because he's giving lectures on the Antichrist as if I honestly like I would just be so curious to kind of watch them and tear them just to see what even because like all of these Silicon Valley guys are all just like smooth talkers, and that they have there's a reason, there's a good reason, like they have abilities in terms of talking to people and convincing people of things, but that's not that they're sinister. Like it's not what I'm offended by. I'm not offended by their ability to talk. If anything, it's like I praise that ability to communicate and articulate. That's a good thing, I think. The issue comes with their like complete lack of introspection and philosophy into what they're forcing onto other people, which is ultimately like what I think is the biggest sin of all this. Is like to me that shows a lack of humility. And I talked about the importance of humility when it comes to any philosophy. But I think, forcing your belief system onto other people, I think is kind of the ultimate sin. Because I think the the place to, how to approach this is that you don't know everything. It's like there's so much that you don't even know what you don't know. It's like the idea that you can just come out here and say that people will be better if X, Y, Z, or like the world will be better if X, Y, Z, or whatever it is. Like you're coming out and saying that is a problem. Which, by the way, I say stuff like that all the time. The difference between me and Peter Thiel is he has $80 billion or whatever, and he can actually cause people, like he can actually enforce his beliefs onto other people and require them to, do certain things, or whatever it is that the fuck he's doing. I don't even know what the fuck he's doing. But regardless, like I think like forcing other people to participate in your be parts in your little hero movie, in your life, I think is kind of an ultimate sin. I'm not saying everyone should live in a bubble and do nothing and just do everything for themselves. And I think that other people play a role in other people's lives all the time, and a lot of times it can be good, like synergistic relationships, which I think is the way to do it. That's what that's kind of what having good friends or being a good friend is playing a good role in someone else's life and being there for them when they need it and being support. But this is not that at all. Like if you are telling me that Peter Thiel is a friend in me and is like supporting me, I'm like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? He's trying to eradicate humanity and then merge with a shitty AI bot developed by some private company with God knows what as an agenda. It's like these are not goals that I think are aligned even with himself and whoever the fuck are his friends. I'm not sure if he even had it, but it's a lack of honesty with themselves, and others, and the enforcement of their arrogant worldview onto others, which I think is, again, it's not coming from a place of humility. I think that's the ultimate sin in all of this, is whatever your belief is, it has to almost be, not that it has to be like, compatible with other people's beliefs. You can have belief systems that are incompatible, but like you can't stick a gun in somebody else's mouth because they believe it. It's like, even if you were let's use Christianity as an example. If you were a Christian and you believe, one true God, or, that's just whatever, that's your belief is Christianity. And if somebody is a Satanist and believes, whatever the exact opposite of that is, or the Church of Satan or something, which hilariously, like somebody sent me the actual like pamphlet of the Church of Satan. It's a bunch of like very godly principles, right? It's, obviously more materialistic and, not fundamentalist Christian. But it's kind of, I'd say like out of like the, 8 tenets or whatever it is, like 5 of them are pretty, they kind of sound what Jesus was after all along, right? Like getting along with people, like, not, kind of, again, approaching things from this place of humility. And that even is what Jesus should represent. But regardless, like if you were a Christian and then your idea of like enforcing your religion is killing people that support the Antichrist, that is not only hilariously ironic, but that is like the quintessential example of like how not to have that's an anti-functional life philosophy. So like that can't be what your philosophy is if it involves murdering or putting the gun in or silencing or locking up these people that believe, again, the patently opposite thing as you. Like that can't be part of your worldview. And likewise, like it's almost like a copyleft license thing, where it's like the copyleft license is where like you can't lock down the code base, so anyone that uses it also can't lock it down. So you have to retain the same rights of freedom that you were granted when you use the code. So in the same vein, like applying this to, I guess your life and existence, like you have to retain the same freedoms of thinking and the same freedoms of expression that you were granted, like as a result. So if your philosophy is excluding or involves, again, silencing or putting the gun in the mouth or imprisoning other people with opposite beliefs as you, that's the problem, right? And so you can't say that like, well, then it's like the Satanists want to kill everybody. It's like, well, that's not in their belief system, and it's not like if that really is the opposite of you, why are you the one who wants to kill them? Like by that logic, the opposite would be not killing you. So if they didn't want to hurt you, but you wanted to hurt them, you're the problem, not them. Regardless of whoever you're hiding behind, you can hide behind God or Satan or whoever the fuck whoever your boy is that you're hiding behind. Like you can't use that as an excuse to again, not retain the freedoms that you were granted in your life. Again, to kind of use to piggyback off of the it's the copyleft example. Yeah, so this is a completely unrelated topic, but was this interesting idea of like this. I kind of call this the expiration date theory, where like this goes for like members of your family, your friends, significant others, really anyone that you'd have a relationship with, over the course of your life. There's, almost like there's a Black Mirror episode that's similar to this, but that's only in the nature of like, you have to leave this person when this time comes up. But there's a certain number of hours that you can spend with a person. Maybe it's, of course, the hours could be in the 10,000s. It could be, hundreds and hundreds of weeks. It could be, the amount of time is immaterial. It could be a ridiculous amount of time. But there's a certain amount of time you can spend with somebody before you're, kind of like tapped out, or you no longer enjoy their company, or there's some irreconcilable difference. And I think part of this is like, I don't really want to agree with this, because it's like I think people can change in both directions. Like they can change to not like you or to like you more. It's like it's kind of all subjective. I don't think anyone's absolute, and I don't think you can get to a point where it's like no matter what, I don't want to be around this person anymore. But there is this interesting thing where it's like there's an amount of time that's like an ideal amount of time to spend with the person. So it's like I think one way of looking at this is to try to cherish the time that you have, that you enjoy with people. So if you do enjoy time with somebody, I think it's natural to try to get more of it and like spend as much time with them as you can. When, again, considering the finitude of our life and the finitude of the amount of time they might actually enjoy your company, or vice versa, like appreciate that, all right, well, this is great now and I want to appreciate this, but I don't want to there's only a certain number of hours and I don't want to burn through them, right? And most people, I think, you don't ever reach the point where it's like you burn through the hours. But, there's some people you've seen before, and some of this might just be like people just, I don't know, reacting in weird ways. But they were married for like 40 years and they just like randomly just like get divorced. There's not even any infidelity. They're just like, yeah, I'm kind of sick of them, right? And that, to me, that's just kind of like proof for this expiration date theory, where it's like it's not even about like their incompatibility or anything like that. It's just like there's a certain number of hours that they were kind of meant to spend together, and they burn through all of it. So this isn't like if you like somebody to stay away from them and not spend time with them, if you like them. But it's just an interesting like way to think about relationships with people. It's like there's a certain threshold after which it's like, all right, I've kind of had my fill, and that's kind of I guess a rude way to put it. But still, I just think it's interesting, this whole theory of like it being finite. And and you hope that, like, especially with like a partner or somebody, that you've selected somebody that, let's say you only live for 200,000 more weeks or something. I don't even know how many weeks that is. That's probably like 500 years. Probably a long time. What, 50 weeks in a year? 100 weeks is like 2 years. So I don't know, if you live for 40 more years, that's I don't know, 4,000 weeks or something like that. That's just, rough math or something. I guess that would be 80 years. Okay, 2,000 weeks. I think that's maybe like 21 years, something like that. Or 18 years, I don't know. Either way, like however many long that, 4,000, maybe 36 years. Maybe you live 36 more years, whatever. The math's not important. The important part of it is, it's like, all right, if you are going to live that long, but then like, your sweet spot with this person, your number is, 8,000 weeks, and it doesn't really matter. It's like you can spend as much time with them as you possibly could imagine. You're not gonna run out of like, joy with them. That's not a concern that you need to have. Which is, I think, what people hope happens. I think that is kind of the goal with finding somebody that you're willing to spend that much time with. And maybe you've spent time with people, and I certainly have. I'm not gonna pretend like I haven't. People that like after like hour one, you're like, okay, fuck this person. I might last like, maybe like a week, before I would consider being, I would consider many other things besides being like, I don't want to spend any more time with them. That certainly happened to me, but just you want to find somebody, or people that have very, very high numbers in that, where you don't really get tired of them. It's either something interesting, or they find, or each other's find ways to keep the time with each other engaging. So it isn't about like improving or trying to be like more interesting or better, but I don't know. I think you can improving your gratitude by thinking about things in an expiration date fashion might be a good way to like not be as I don't know, wasteful as your time with people, especially time that you enjoy with people. If you don't enjoy it, then I don't know, maybe your time's already up with them. But either way, I just think it's an interesting theory. I don't know if you know that I'm not convinced by the certainty of it. I'm not saying that this is fact, but it's just an interesting way to look at things. Yeah, I guess I only have like 30 more seconds. I generally go to 50 minutes on these. I don't even know why. It's not like, I feel like I should go to an hour so that like I hit the extra digit, because now like even my videos are kind of in the same bubble as, videos from 10 minutes and 1 second to 59 minutes 59 seconds. Whereas the hour, like you achieve this, like, okay, you're in a different realm of video type. Maybe that's just like a YouTube specific thing, but it feels, I don't know, strange. So I don't know why 50 minutes was something I said. I think the original intention was that, that I should be able to sit down, finish recording, upload the video, make the thumbnail, do all that within 1 hour. Which that actually all makes sense now. I guess I walk back why, that all makes sense. Because it's all within 1 hour, so that I could feasibly, if I had one open hour, I could get one of these videos done completely start to finish. Which tends to be the case too, actually. The thumbnails, I have all the overlays already generated. They're very easy to generate. And then, I just pretty much hit upload. And I guess the harder part is coming up with, what the title is. And I always title it something stupid, but because I generally have to like listen to at least part of it or just try to remember what I said. Because, I do kind of like, sometimes I black out and it's like, 50 minutes later, I don't know what the fuck I talked about. So I had to listen to what I said and like, try to find something interesting or creative that I, said throughout. But anyway, I'm certainly over my time now, so I can stop talking. Let me get to a safe spot before I stop recording. Kill these skeletons. I did a good haul though. I think I killed like, I got like 14 or 15 skulls. Should be pretty good. Maybe I'll go kill those withers, but anyway, thanks for watching. Peace out. I'll see you in the next one.